Hi everybody, welcome back. We are in Jeremy Duff, Elements of New Testament Greek. We're in chapter 10 and we are looking today at the form of the relative pronoun. If you remember the previous video, we introduced the idea of complex sentences and we also introduced some of the other vocabulary and concepts associated with the technical terms to help us to understand what complex sentences are and therefore how relative pronouns function. In this video, all I'm going to do is introduce the actual form of the relative pronoun. Then in the next video, we'll start looking at how it's actually used in Greek. So here is the complete form of the relative pronoun. It's in Jeremy Duff's book. It's on page 113. And it looks like another hornet's nest of things that are going to confuse you that you've got to remember. It's not. This is really, really easy. And I want to show you today just how easy it is. Just look with me at this table. What you notice immediately that you start paying close attention to this is it looks very much like the form of the definite article, or rather just the article. There's only one article in Greek. So just start with the masculine to begin with, and just remember what the article is. It's ho, ton, tu, to, hoi, tus, tone, tois, isn't it? Well, this is pretty much the same thing, except that the tau is missed off everywhere. Same thing in the feminine, hair, ten, tes, ter, hi, tas, tone, tais, and the neuter, to, tu, to, ta, tone, tois. So it looks very much the same, except with the article missed off, and that's with the tau missed off, sorry, and that's exactly what it is. In effect, the way that you form the relative pronoun in Greek is simply by missing off the tau when it's there. Notice, this is what the article would look like, isn't it? Same here. Ten, tes, ter, hi, tas, tone, tais. And again over here you'd have to, tu, to, ta, tone, tois. And Jeremy Duff very helpfully highlights this little box in page 113. If you see a very short word with a rough breathing, and that's what the relative pronoun generally has instead of the tau. If you see a very short word with a rough breathing, it's almost certainly a relative pronoun. So that's how you remember those main portions of it. However, there are a couple of little things that we need to remember which don't quite fit this rule. And the first and most obvious one is up here with the masculine nominative singular relative pronoun. You know, it's hos. There's no tau at the beginning of the masculine nominative singular article. It's just a ho. And what you've done here is put a sigma on the end. Well, that's just the exception. You do have to add hos, the sigma, to form hos to make the relative pronoun in the masculine nominative singular. And you're thinking, oh grief, here we go again. Well, listen, seriously, you're going to see this so often that it's just going to become second nature to you. Hos is the MNS, masculine nominative singular, relative pronoun. It just is, and you'll very quickly get used to it. But it is just worth flagging that up for you as the exception where you have to add an extra letter. There's one other quirk, of course, and you notice that as soon as you start thinking about the masculine and feminine nominative and nominative singular and a nominative plural, they don't normally have a tau in front of them either. So how do you distinguish the, let's say, masculine nominative plural article from the masculine nominative plural relative pronoun? Similar for the feminine nominative plural nominative singular. How do you distinguish that? This is one of those occasions where you need an accent to make the distinction. As Duff explains right at the beginning of his book, there aren't many words in Greek where you really do need an accent to help you make a distinction between two similar words. This is one of them. So if you've been waiting ever since like the third video I ever did to try and think, where are these words where the accent makes a difference? This is what you've been waiting for. There's one or two others that you've seen already, I'm sure you can remember. So you notice here, masculine nominative plural. In the feminine nominative singular and nominative plural, we have a small accent, and it's an accent which slopes that way, not that way, to distinguish these from the corresponding article, which otherwise would look exactly the same. Notice also that you do get the accent in the neuter, nominative and accusative singular. And again, you can see why that's helpful, indeed necessary, because if we just scrub all these green towels out for a moment, just to stop confusing us. There we are, let's get rid of all them. If you just scrub all those out, and you look at these, and imagine you didn't have the little accent, they'd look exactly like the masculine nominative singular article. So we need a little accent there to make that distinction as well. So can you see what we do? The first thing is we remove all of the towels from the article to produce the relative pronoun. The next thing we do is masculine nominative singular is a bit weird. We add an extra letter, the sigma. And then finally, when there wasn't a towel in the article, we add the accent in the relative pronoun just to highlight the difference. Make sense? Of course it does. Now, just one final note about this. You will know, because I've mentioned it before, and you might have read it elsewhere, that in the original Greek manuscripts, in many original Greek manuscripts, they were written in capital letters. They had some of the letters missing. They certainly didn't have the accents and even some of the breathings and other stuff that we have in our contemporary manuscripts. If you go back to the very, very earliest Greek manuscripts, you certainly wouldn't have had these little dashes and so on, the accents to help you distinguish. And you're starting to think, oh, how did they tell the difference? Well, if you think about it a little bit, the way in which a relative pronoun functions is not altogether different from the way in which an article functions. And this is just a helpful thing to help you get to grips with how these are going to work, and we'll see in the next video. If I have a sentence like, I see my computer, which is on the desk. My computer's on the desk over there. Which is the relative pronoun. I see my computer, which is on the desk. Well, now think of another sentence which is kind of similar and highlights how which, the relative pronoun, is kind of like an article. I see my computer, the one on the desk. Can you see? The one on the desk and which is on the desk join those two sentences in similar ways. So it's not altogether surprising that relative pronouns and articles are similar, and indeed that there's not a huge problem in sorting out this confusion, because relative pronouns and articles, almost at a philosophical linguistic level, they do perform similar functions. Excuse me. They do perform similar functions in sentences. It's a bit extra, a bit more than you need to know to get through Duff, but I think that might be helpful, especially as you're kind of working through some of the examples we'll get to soon. Anyway, there is the form of the definite article. Next video, we're going to turn over the page, Jeremy Duff, page 114, and we're going to start to look at some examples how we use this in Greek. But for now, keep working. That shouldn't take you long to figure that one out. Walk around the garden a few times, chant it out loud. We'll have you doing it in no time at all. And 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, you'll be reading the New Testament in Greek in no time at all as well. Okay, God bless and bye for now.